interesting that we've been talking about Harry and Meghan and the Queen's disapproval. And Ingrid Seward, who's written this book, I think it's called My Mother and I. Is that what it's called? Because it's from the perspective of the now King Charles about everything that was going on. She, of course, is...
Which is a little weird because she's even critical of him in it. It's almost... I love Ingrid, even though she was mean one time to me on a competing network, and I'm a little bit bitter over it, but she still hasn't blocked me like Angela Levin, so I'll give her that.
I mean, how has every royal commentator blocked you, Kinsey? What have you said to them? What have you done?
Only Angela Levin has blocked me. It is interesting because she's critical of Charles of the king in a really fair way, but I was still taken aback by the criticism because it does come off as a book that is from his perspective.
Okay, that's interesting, and of course it's out in, when is it out? The 15th of February, and she's the editor, or was the editor, of Majesty magazine as well, so she has a lot of access to all of that. And interesting on the subject of books, because there have been a couple of conflicting reports this week that Meghan was planning a tell-all book, but Prince Harry has put an end to it because he wants to keep relations good with the family. But then, is that true? Because, I mean, I see those little dollar signs in their eyes, and if there is some money to be made, they'll make it, won't they?
I've said for months that this story is not true because Meghan doesn't have a happily ever after. How do you end a book about your life when you're professionally failing?
But they're happy, aren't they? They've got their chickens in Montecito or whatever.
I lost my Spotify contract. I changed my phone number. I have 5 friends. The end. She doesn't have her happily ever after yet, and I think she will. I'm not saying she won't, but it's certainly not today. I think they've made a lot of mistakes along the way. I think that they've done too much done too much out of vengeance, and they have done too much with a sense of urgency instead of being thoughtful about what the consequences were. So she can have her happily ever after one day, but it's certainly not today. How do you end a book about your life when you're not talking to your ill father? You there are questions around...
You've been sued by your disabled sister.
You're being sued by your, also a sister that is, I mean, I can't even imagine going after my half sister that way. But I don't have one, by the way, but wow, if I did. But I don't know. I just feel like there's not a happily ever after there. How do you round that up? I mean, Harry's, and you're more of an expert on it than I am when it comes to Spare. But it felt like the end of Harry's book was like, but despite all that, I'm now in California and I'm with my beautiful family.
But we say that, but Harry is utterly barking mad, and he, But
they've had so much failure since then, Cristo, that I'd say their success as a couple, the only return on investment any company has had is Penguin Random House because of Harry's book. Netflix can't show you that they got new subscribers because of their one commercial hit with Harry and Meghan, and that was Harry and Meghan. They've only had one commercial hit with them, but Netflix hasn't shown us any numbers to prove that there was a return on investment there. Penguin Random House, there are still questions as to how many of those books actually sold versus what, Barnes and Noble or what big book companies bought it and then sent back what was not sold. I mean, how many? I saw it for 50% off the other day in a store. So I do think that the only success they've had was Harry's book. So if Meghan wrote a book today, what does she say when that was the climax so far of their success?
Well, Spare on Audible audiobooks is now it's 0.00. It's free on Audible. It's free. It's free, or I can buy it in hardcover for £14, which is half of the recommended retail price.
Right.
So, but it's interesting. I saw someone online this week talking about one of the quotes from Spare, and you know I love a quote from Spare, as you know I love to read Spare, but I found this really tragic, and I think that this actually goes to the root of Harry's real problems that he has. I was the shadow. He talks about how he saw himself and being second in line to the throne. I was the shadow, the support, the plan B. I was brought into the world in case something happened to Willie. I was summoned to provide backup, distraction, diversion, and if necessary, a spare part. Kidney perhaps, blood transfusion, speck of bone marrow. I mean, imagine seeing yourself like that. Imagine that being your amount of self-belief and how you actually perceive yourself to be. I mean,
that is exactly where Ingrid is critical of King Charles, okay? Because she puts that quote out there, says that Harry is obsessed with victimhood, and says that it's a nasty thing that he actually inherited from his father, who will also wallow in self-pity sometimes. And that's where I was taken aback and thought, well, while I do believe that is probably a fair assessment, I'm also surprised to hear it from her when this feels like a book that's coming from his from his point of view. So she says that Harry just wallows in his victimhood, and that like self-pity is something that he inherited from his father.
Well, fair play. I mean, at least it sounds like it's quite rounded, and the criticism isn't just for Harry and Meghan. Though we were referring earlier to the idea of Harry and Meghan becoming king and queen. An episode, says James, of Who Do You Think You Are revealed Boris Johnson to be related to the royal family. So be careful what you wish for. Oh, dear God. Mind you, I suppose if they ever needed to do the balcony wave with Boris Johnson, he'd never need to worry about the crowds on the Mall because he could just fill them with his children.
I was going to say, he's, when it comes to having heirs and spares.
Yeah, we're going to be absolutely fine with Boris Johnson. Even if he just fills the Mall with the children he acknowledges, that's still a fair number. So I think we'd be probably all right. Now, Prince Philip, who even up until the day of his death was as sharp as a knife, he was very wary of Meghan Markle, wasn't he? And he had a nickname for her.
That's right. They say that Ingrid says that Prince Philip warned the Queen to be cautious because the Queen was immediately smitten with Meghan. He savagely called Meghan Wallis Simpson. Well, he called her DOW for Duchess of Wales, but obviously Wallis Simpson was the woman that led. Oh, pardon?
Duchess of Windsor.
Duchess of Windsor, sorry, because she caused the abdication of Edward VIII. And what I thought was interesting about this was that Omid Scobie in Finding Freedom says that a senior member of the royal family called Meghan Harry's showgirl. And I always assumed that was Prince Philip. And so now it confirms to me, based on this DOW nickname, that confirms to me that's likely what that was likely Prince Philip, and that Omid's referring to in Finding Freedom.
Well, yeah, she actually said that Prince Philip felt it was uncanny how much Meghan reminded him of the Duchess of Windsor, which of course led to some of the biggest royal crises, probably the biggest royal crises in the history of modern monarchy. And he wasn't far wrong, because, of course, many of the crises around the monarchy being alleged to be racist and all those things have come directly from Meghan and, of course, Harry and their accusations. So he was absolutely spot on that before a period of calm, chaos was on the horizon.
Yep.
Very, very sharp man. Okay, now, let's talk about... you told me, you messaged me this, and you said I can't have access to this story, but it's going to be on the front page of the Mail on Sunday, and you said to me, I want you to read it. And this is another extract from this book, and it apparently outlines how the Queen saw that Diana was a better match for, wait for it, Prince Andrew.
I know. I did actually. Johnny, your producer, was so sweet to send this to me. So thank you so much, Johnny. there's only a few mentions about how the Queen felt like Diana was a better match for Andrew. But Ingrid, who did sit down with Diana, who met Diana on multiple occasions and actually went to Kensington Palace and had, time with her, she said that Diana worked a little bit harder than we know about to become the Princess of Wales. Strategically fawning over Balmoral, strategically fawning over Sandringham, showing up at the shooting parties like ready to go when all the girls were still in bed. So I had never read that stuff. That was really interesting to me. But what I did know beforehand was that Diana was around the family much earlier than just her teens, where she's at 16 when she's spotted by Prince Charles. She would play hide and go seek at Sandringham with Prince Andrew. So that's why this was interesting to me, because I knew that as a little girl, she did play with Prince Andrew. And it made sense to me because they kind of grew up around each other and were playmates.
Do you think that marriage would have worked?
No, I mean, we loved Diana for being the almost queen. We wanted her to be queen one day.
Well, we did, yes. And of course, she provided one brilliant heir to the throne. The spare, not so much. But it's weird to think of her with Prince Andrew. And of course, that would be airbrushing Fergie out of history. Or worse, we could have ended up with Charles marrying Fergie, and of course, her being in line to being queen.
But what Ingrid does say, which I wonder, is she knows, she knows more than I do. But she does say that the Queen always felt like Camilla was more well suited for Charles. And we've never heard that before. Are we rewriting history because we really want people to love the Queen?
Well, she does love Camilla, and Camilla has been the making of Charles. And I think that now Camilla and Charles have been married, the king and queen, we should say, for way, way longer than...
Absolutely, but she says that the Queen felt like Camilla was more suited for Charles before Diana. Well, and I've never heard that before,
but this is brilliant, but why did they make it so difficult? And why did the king, as it was then, fanny around so that they let Camilla go? All of that could have been avoided, all of that heartache. But then, without it, we wouldn't have had the last 3 series of The Crown. So every
we
cloud...
wouldn't have Prince William, and I do love Prince William and his family so much.
I know you do. I know. You just keep your hands on him, off him, now that Kate's out of commission, Kinsey. I could see you eyeing up that future role. But if you are successful, I would like you to employ me and make me part of the inner circle. Kinsey, as always, wonderful to have you.